Hi, and welcome to Paleo Rewind
Oh
2025.
my god, go put clothes on first.
Right, sorry. Welcome to Paleo Rewind 2025, an annual event hosted by Edge Science.
Woo woo. This year, he's asked us to cover some of the most notable paleontological discoveries from the spookiest of months, October.
His mistake, really. We'll start at the beginning and work our way to the end of the month, discussing papers in the order in which they were published. Which means you have to wait until the end. Don't make me invalidate you again.
Yeah, anyway, without further ado, let's move on from whatever that is and dig into October.
October was kicked off with some good old-fashioned lizard research. Now, everyone who knows me knows I love lizards.
It's true, hell, his daughter's a lizard.
So obviously I was excited to see October start out with a new paper by Benson et al. Describing a new Jurassic lizard.
And he's not just saying that because Roger Benson is one of the professors he applied with for his PhD.
Hey, shut up. But seriously, Raj, baby, call me.
The 167-million-year-old lizard, which Benson et al. Have dubbed Brugnathair, we're gonna go with that, Brugnathair elongensis, or however you say it, sorry, I don't speak Gaelic, was described from a disarticulated skeleton found in Scotland.
Brugnathair represents one of the oldest known fossil squamates, the group that includes all lizards, including snakes, and was placed in an all-new family of extinct lizards, the Parviraptoridae.
This early lizard is described as a mosaic in that it possesses several traits associated with several lizard lineages, such as the head and bodily proportions of a monitor lizard, the teeth and jaws of a snake, and several features thought to be more primitive to lizards that are seen in geckos.
You hear that, buddy? That might be your great times several million grandparent. Right now, it's unclear whether Brugnathair is an ancestor to specifically toxicophoran lizards like monitors, snakes, and iguanas, or something more basal that might be ancestral to my little leopard gecko, Darwin. But what is for sure is that this paves the way for a lot of really cool lizard research in the future.
Abelisaurs!
They are weird.
Known well to lay audiences as the dinosaurs with the short but strong jaws and comically short arms that make T-Rex look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, such as Carnotaurus and Majungasaurus, this October, the bulldogs of the dinosaurs received a new addition to the fam.
On October 2nd, Valandia et al. Introduced us to Vidasaura colozicani. How do you say it? It's Vidasaura!
While Vidasaura was named off of fragmentary remains, which we typically find to provide questionable justification for a new taxon, it actually represents the first theropod overall from the Cretaceous Los Llanos formation of Argentina's La Rioja province.
It also possesses several traits that are associated with multiple lineages of Abelisaurs, which typically indicates something new.
I think he's back.
Oh, god damn it! I think we better take this show on the road. He's just getting too impatient.
Yeah, agreed.
Welcome to the mighty Delaware River. The very river that George Washington crossed with his men in the dead of winter because he's a fucking psychopath, and home to a wide diversity of fish.
About 2/3 of these fish all belong to the largest group of freshwater fish known today, the Otophysans, which were long thought to have originated in freshwater prior to the breakup of Pangaea.
Until October 2nd of this year, when a paper by Liu et al. Pulled a bitch you thought.
Liu and his team used a combination of morphological and genomic data, with new information pulled from a new late Cretaceous Otophysan fossil, to demonstrate that the group likely originated much later than previously thought, in the late Jurassic, or even in the early Cretaceous.
Additionally, the ancient dispersal of these fish being present on all continents, even after Pangaea began to split, coupled with the results of their phylogenetic analyses, implied that their origins weren't even freshwater, but rather marine, and that the two major subgroups within Otophysi actually adapted to freshwater independently of one another. I've always loved birds. My grandpa used to take me birding when I was a kid. But one of my favorite groups of birds is one that I've never been fortunate enough to see, the bowerbirds. One day. One day.
Bowerbirds live in Australia and that part of the world, Max. Come on, get your bird facts right.
Huh. Well, I guess that explains why I've never seen one. In spite of what this hat, which is incontestably better than yours, might have you thinking, I've never been to Australia.
Wait, did you just switch hats?
Huh? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, Max has had bowerbirds on the brain as of late because of a new paper published by Steele et al. On October 7th.
Oh yes, Steele and her team found evidence of Miocene bowerbirds in New Zealand. Kinda sick.
You'll recognize bowerbirds as those house-building birds from the David Attenborough documentaries. A newly published specimen dubbed Aviperdidus gracilis, which is represented by a 19 to 15 million year old leg bone called a tarsa metatarsus, demonstrated several traits that we associate with modern bowerbirds.
But this leg bone was notably proportionally longer and overall smaller than any seen in modern bowerbirds, so the researchers suggested it may belong to an early or even stem member of the group.
Wait, do you hear that? Oh shit, I think he caught up with us.
Damn it, back to the car!
Get it? Like, because we're on shit, because the rock is shit. A study published on October 9th introduced us to a new species of Icthyosaur from the early Jurassic, and I bet you'll never guess who the lead author is.
Anyone keeping tally on new species of Icthyosaur these days won't be surprised to hear that this research was helmed by none other than Dean Lomax.
Arguably the president, or rather prime minister, of Ichthyosaur research at this point, and kind of a celebrity in his own right.
Why don't you go kiss him if he's so cool?
Don't tempt me.
Focus on the road, smartass. This new marine reptile, which has been named Zyphodracon goldencapensis, possesses several unique traits among ichthyosaurs, such as a lacrimal bone with prong-like projections, additional projections on the prefrontal bone, wedge-shaped external nares, and most notably, an extremely long and slender snout.
These traits allowed Dr. Lomax and crew to put Zyphodracon into a new group of ichthyosaurs called the Hophteopterygia.
The Triassic was a weird time for dinosaurs.
And in fact, it was the first time for dinosaurs. Here, come check this out.
Many things about the Triassic and the origin of dinosaurs remain a great mystery.
But sites like this small Triassic outcrop help us solve those mysteries bit by bit. That's what Heichenleitner, I hardly know her, et al. Did with an early Argentinian relative of the long-necked dinosaurs in their publication from October 15th.
Introducing Hoyrecursor jaguensis, a sauropodomorph from the Santo Domingo Formation of northwest Argentina.
This early relative of Littlefoot and Dino was found in a bone bed along with lots of weird Triassic critters. But the dinosaur in particular stood out to the scientists for the fact that it fills gaps in the early long-neck family tree.
In particular, the size and shape of this dinosaur's neck vertebrae indicate a blend of characteristics typically independently associated with the two groups of early sauropodomorphs, which seems to indicate the beginning of a trajectory towards the eventual gargantuan sizes of their descendants. Okay, I think it's safe to say we lost him.
Hey, isn't that your mom's apartment building?
Yeah, I guess we can just hang out here for a bit.
A paleoanthropological paper by Archer et al. From October 22nd did the unthinkable. It gave due cultural credit to a people who aren't white.
Breaking from the absurd but long-held assumption that ancient Australian First Peoples culture starts and stops with hunting, the researchers came to bat for this ancient but still present cultural group by suggesting that not every mark on extinct megafauna bones were butcher marks. And in fact, some may have resulted from fossil collecting.
After reanalyzing the tibia of a short-faced kangaroo from Mammoth Cave, the Australian one, not the American National Park, previously thought to have been killed by early Australian peoples, Archer and his co-authors were able to use micro-CT scanning and microscopic analyses to determine that the cuts to the bone not only probably happened after the animal had been dead for some time, but even after it had begun to fossilize.
But it doesn't stop there. Teeth of a giant diprotodont called Zygomaturus were gifted by the First Peoples of the Kimberley region to earlier researchers, and an additional Pleistocene kangaroo tooth was also gifted to them by the Warara First Peoples. It's likely that these teeth had been in the possession of the first people from these regions for thousands of years, but the researchers who initially studied them suggested they came from animals killed in those regions.
But Archer et al. Conducted new X-ray fluorescence analyses and found that the mineralogy of the tooth did not match the mineralogy of the fossils in the Kimberley region, and noted that these species were in fact never thought to have lived there at all, for the lack of any other fossil evidence to suggest so.
Instead, the X-ray chemical analyses indicated that the teeth came from Mammoth Cave, almost 3,000 kilometers to the south, and a month-long walk with modern trail and roadway systems and no stops. This means that the people who initially collected the teeth from Mammoth Cave valued them enough to carry them thousands of kilometers.
Further review of other instances of butchered megafauna bones were actually also examples of fossils that had been discovered and transported thousands of years ago by First Peoples. This indicates that fossils may have actually been very culturally important to early Australian peoples.
Speaking of prior assumptions worthy of new challenges, you may have heard the rumor that while the big 10-kilometer space rock was the final nail in the coffin, the dinosaurs were going extinct anyway.
This interpretation of the death of the dinos stems from the seemingly sharp drop in dino diversity in End-Cretaceous rock formations like those in the northern Great Plains.
But this doesn't really account for diversity in other regions, which haven't been given as strong a consideration. Enter Flynn et al. On October 23rd with a new paper on End-Cretaceous dinosaur diversity in southern North America.
You'd think at some point Americans would learn that you can't base a whole worldview off one region, but alas, here we are.
Flynn and his team focused on biodiversity in the Nacho Ibito member of the Ojo Alamo Formation in New Mexico, which represents the time just before the asteroid impact, and compared it to other formations from well-studied regions with both older and younger fossil assemblages.
They found that diversity was still pretty high at the end of the Cretaceous, but that species tended to stay in their preferred ecosystem rather than every species expanding all the way across the continent, a concept called endemism.
This makes a lot more sense than prior assumptions, because regional biodiversity resulting from endemism is the standard for modern species diversity. And it turns out that previous studies had already demonstrated that ecoregions had begun diversifying towards the end of the Campanian, the stage right before the Maastrichtian, which was the final stage of the non-bird dinosaurs.
This trend of diversifying ecoregions, which Flynn et al. Call provinciality, continued into the Maastrichtian and likely explains why specific regions seem less diverse, even though overall diversity remained comparable to earlier parts of the Cretaceous. So it turns out the dinosaurs weren't just evolutionary failures after all.
What can we say? Guess you gotta have them skills to survive a giant space rock.
What?
Being a generalist is the name of the game, baby. This crocodile isn't a crocodile.
Actually, it's a close relative of crocodiles called a Dyrosaur, which is a crocodiliform, but Dyrosaurs are not crocodiles.
Confused yet? So are we. Just kidding. Let us explain. The crocodiliforms are what are more commonly referred to as crocodilians, which includes a lot of animals which are not crocodiles, such as Dyrosaurs, Sarcosuchus, Deinosuchus, alligators, and gharials. However, all modern crocodilians fall within a subgroup of crocodiliforms called Eusuchians, while Dyrosaurs were in a completely different group called Tethasuchians. Basically, all crocodiles are Eusuchians, but not all Eusuchians are crocodiles, and all Eusuchians are crocodilians, but not all crocodilians are Eusuchians, such as in the case of Dyrosaurs, not to be confused with dinosaurs, none of which are crocodilians. Makes perfect sense, right? Not confusing at all.
And it's one of those almost but not quite crocodiles that was described by Saber.
Sick-ass name, BT dubs. Like, Dr. Saber? What? That's so cool. She should name her kid Light.
And her team discovering that it was an early diverging Dyrosaurid from the Middle Campanian Cuvier Formation of Egypt in a paper published on October 27th.
This was big news in the Dyrosaurid world because early Dyrosaurid evolutionary history remains poorly understood due to a significant fossil gap during the late Cretaceous.
But this new species, named Wadasuchus casabi, has transitional cranial features, including reduced premaxillary alveoli, modified occlusion patterns, and dorsally positioned external nares that help shed light on some of the aspects of cranial evolution in early Dyrosaurids.
This may support an earlier transatlantic dispersal of the group than what was previously thought, but more research is needed to attain more certain conclusions. Now we finally get to talk about one of my all-time favorite topics, fossil mammals. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a mammal guy. Well, really, we're all mammal guys if you think about it. So I was pretty pumped to hear about the new paper published by Fraser et al. On October 28th, naming a new species of 23-million-year-old rhino.
Right off the bat, this is a really significant discovery, and it's represented by a complete skeleton, which, if you don't know, is kind of rare in paleo. It extends the duration of its genus by millions of years, and it's the highest latitude rhino ever found.
But that's not even the coolest part. This rhino tells a complex and intricate story, but we'll get to that.
First, let us introduce you to this new species, Epioceratherium itgiluk. This species name itgiluk means frost or frosty, in reference to the fact that this guy was found in the high Arctic of Canada. And it's a name that was chosen in collaboration with an elder from the most northern Inuit community in Canada. Paleontologists take note, we should be doing a lot more of this instead of naming every new species after the same 5 dead white guys. Just saying.
Exactly. Snaps. And on top of doing a great job naming this critter, Fraser and her team had plenty of justification here to name a new species, because this specimen displays all sorts of unique anatomical characteristics for this genus, especially in its teeth.
But wait, there's more! The authors conducted phylogenetic analyses too, which brought to light interesting implications about rhino dispersal.
Specifically, their dispersal across the North Atlantic land bridge, which used to connect Europe to North America during warm periods over the last 66 million years, and therefore allowed land animals to migrate and move between continents.
But here's the catch. Before this rhino brought new evidence to light, paleontologists had concluded that terrestrial vertebrates did not disperse back and forth across the land bridge anytime after the early Eocene.
With a new species on their hands, these researchers conducted biogeographical analyses and found that it's likely that multiple dispersals between Europe and North America occurred in both directions during the Oligocene and even the Miocene.
Meaning that the North Atlantic land bridge might have been crossable to land animals 20 million years longer than was previously thought. I mean, you have to love it when new research adds a new piece to the puzzle.
I mean, I totally agree. This research is so cool, and I feel like it would have gotten a lot more attention too if it weren't for... Guess we couldn't avoid this forever.
Nanotyrannus is valid.
Nanotyrannus is valid. Nanotyrannus is valid, betcha!
Nanotyrannus is valid!
Oh my god, Nanotyrannus is valid! You know, actually, I don't really give a shit. Suppose the audience needs the background on the drama to understand why people made such a big deal out of this.
Okay, so, in 1946, Charles Gilmore first described a specimen as a new species of Gorgosaurus, naming it Gorgosaurus lancensis. But then, a 1965 paper by a Soviet paleontologist named Rojdeskvensky, I think, suggested this specimen might be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex. But given that he was a Soviet, publishing about an American dinosaur in the mid-1960s, it didn't make much of a splash in the world of American tyrannosaurid research. Fast forward to 1988, and research by Bakker et al. Reassigns the lancensis species to a new tyrannosaur genus, Nanotyrannus, which Bakker and his co-authors believe to be a mature specimen and not a juvenile T-Rex.
If you thought this was settled, think again. A decade later in 1999, a paper by Carr et al. Provided new analysis demonstrating that the specimen was in fact not an adult, but a juvenile. Carr suggested that, given no adults had ever been found and that it shared an ecosystem with Tyrannosaurus rex, it was likely that this animal was a juvenile T-Rex, especially considering that, at the time, juvenile T-Rex material was not abundant.
Enter several decades of infighting among tyrannosaur researchers. It often got pretty heated, and each camp hurled papers at one another with as much venom as they hurled their insults. It was messy, but it all kept coming back to the same issue. If Nanotyrannus is valid, where are all the adults? After all, the Hell Creek and Lance formations were abundant with T-Rex. So if a second Tyrannosaur was present in these ecosystems, then why weren't we finding them?
That is, until 2006, when commercial fossil salesman Clayton Phipps found two extraordinarily complete dinosaurs who seemed to have died right next to each other, a Triceratops and a juvenile T-Rex. Phipps outsourced fossil preparation to CK Preparations and began trying to sell the fossil in 2011 with the help of controversial fossil salesman Pete Larson. In 2013, Larson declared that the juvenile T-Rex was in fact the first adult specimen of Nanotyrannus. This, of course, was met with much backlash from paleontologists. After a several-year-long legal dispute over the land boundaries where the specimens were discovered, they ended up at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, where preparation on the fossil was completed and research was begun by their curator, Dr. Lindsay Zano.
In the time since then, attempts have been made to validate Nanotyrannus, some by Larson, but none of those attempts settled the issue. Because of the seeming lack of evidence and the lack of support by leading paleontologists, we were actually anti-nano ourselves.
That is, until we took a research visit to the North Carolina Museum in December of 2024, where we saw the specimen in person and had our minds changed on the issue after discussing the now abundant evidence with the museum staff. The museum's collections manager asked us to keep what we saw quiet until the paper was published. And so we did, because we're good little scientists.
On October 30th of this year, the day before Halloween, Dr. Zano and her co-author James Napoli dropped the bombshell.
And the reaction was non-controversial, to the surprise of literally everybody. After years of venom and debate over slim evidence on either side, much of which amounted to anecdote, Zano's team managed to present the world with the first research soundly demonstrating the validity of Nanotyrannus. And the scientific community sat down and took a deep breath. This was the scientific evidence that the debate needed, and in a snap, everyone finally chilled.
First of all, the specimen at the North Carolina Museum was undoubtedly an adult, and it revealed that Nanotyrannus had more teeth than Tyrannosaurus, longer arms, and, according to the lines of arrested growth in the cross-section of their bones, a much shallower growth curve, likely as a result of having less growing to do in their life.
And it doesn't end there. The traits that separate Nanotyrannus from T-Rex also appeared on the most famous juvenile T-Rex specimen, Jane, at the Burpee Museum in Rockford, Illinois. But Jane also has some separate traits from the dueling dinosaurs Nano, which actually indicated that Jane was a second species of Nanotyrannus, which Zano named Nanotyrannus lithaeus.
This, of course, was a major win for women in science because, naturally, after decades of bickering in the Tyrannosaur Boys Club, a woman calmly walked in and settled the whole argument. As it turns out, the boys were just too emotional.
Exactly. See, this is why I love you.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this Paleo Rewind adventure, and if you like our style, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're feeling funky, and stick around for a while.
And feel free to drop any questions you might have in the comments. We'll do our best to answer.
We also want to give another huge shout out to Edge Science for inviting us to be part of the fun this year, and to tell you to go check out the other channels that are doing Paleo Rewind this year along with us. Linked below.
And most of all, we want to say a huge thank you to all the incredible paleontologists out there who are publishing really great work and helping to progress our field.
Yes, seriously, you guys are awesome. And I guess we can say thanks to Nanotyrannus for being valid.
Yeah, I mean, even I admit, Nano made this video kind of fun.
We'll be followed up tomorrow by our buddy Steve at Paleo Analysis, so keep an eye out. He's covering November. Until next time.
Stay fossiliferous.